Right now, let's turn our attention back to Greg Clarke. He stood down as the chairman of the Football Association after he made an appearance before the Digital Culture Media Sports Select Committee in the House of Commons yesterday, where he was talking about disadvantaged players, players who are facing, not disadvantaged, facing the disadvantage of discrimination. Here are the words that Greg Clarke actually said.
If I look at what happens to high-profile female footballers, high-profile coloured footballers, and the abuse they take on social media.
Right, now, the eagle-eared there will notice that he said the words coloured footballers, not footballers of colour. One is a hugely offensive, racist phrase, and one is acceptable language in 2020. Many people might perhaps not know the difference. However, he has now lost his job for another of other comments he said, and a lot of people saying he's a dinosaur, not fit to be representing the game. Should he have gone? Calvin Robinson is a school governor, education consultant, and former assistant principal, and he joins us right now. Good morning to you, Calvin.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
How crazy is
Well, this is it. I mean, he was brought up, we picked up on this by Kevin Brennan, a Labour MP, saying, "Oh, you just used the phrase coloured footballers. Did you want to correct that?" And immediately Greg Clarke did say, "Oh, if he'd said that," and he said, footballers of colour," and he said, "Look, I worked in America and I've been sort of trained to use that sort of language, but if it was a slip of the tongue," he apologised immediately. There was no malicious intent or racist intent in what he had to say, as far as I could hear. Should he have gone?
As a coloured person, I still don't understand the difference between a coloured person and a person of colour. It's like this Cornell University renaming their English department to a Department of English. We're just playing semantics now, aren't we? It's all about intent, as you said. I don't think he intended to be racist. He was fighting racism. He was saying the abuse these people face online is not right. And, as he acknowledged, the words he used might not have been acceptable in 2020, but it's hard. It's difficult to keep adjusting your language in.
It is. I mean, it is in
culture.
terms of what would have been normal, acceptable language in my day from someone who was not racist and is not racist. The language that my parents used. These have all changed. Now, I understand the difference between saying people of colour and coloured people. And the use of the word coloured. This comes from time of segregated United States, and the movement towards from coloured to black to African American. We know the unacceptability of the word of the N word. Obviously, everyone knows that. But also the other N word, Negro. Again, that was introduced sort of as a less racist version. Some people would have thought that was more acceptable. No longer acceptable, and for understandable good reasons. For an awful lot of people, black and white, people trying to say the right thing with no racist intent in their hearts or minds whatsoever. It is getting very difficult for a lot of people to know what it is they can and can't say, and the fear that saying the wrong thing, the penalty is huge now.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I was always called half caste, and then it got upgraded to mixed race, and then it was person of color, and now I think it's BME. But I don't know who's getting offended on my behalf, because I don't particularly enjoy any of these terms. To me, I'm just Calvin. But if you need to categorize me for some kind of scientific reason, then whatever label you choose, as long as you're not using it derogatory, I don't really care. And it always comes down to the context and the way it's being used. And I think Greg Clarke was fighting racism. He was arguing for diversity, arguing against abuse online. So in that context, his intention was good. And after being told the words he used weren't appropriate anymore, he apologized. But there's no forgiveness. This woke cancel culture are very unforgiving. They are the intolerant ones. I don't think in this instance Greg Clarke was intolerant. They are.
There seems to be a view that he's an old dinosaur. Oh, he's got form. He was talking also in the same bit hearing about younger girls not liking the football being struck at them very hard, about being gay and that being a lifestyle choice. Now, I don't agree with him on any of this. I don't like his language, particularly any of this. But I don't have an issue with anyone having those views and expressing those views in the words that they choose. I don't really want to police other people's language unless I think it's outrageously, clearly offensive and deliberately intended to be so. That's the key thing. It's the intent. Do you think that a lot of this, though, is just an excuse to get rid of someone who they consider to be male, pale and stale?
Well, that's it, isn't it? If they wanted to educate people and wanted to improve the discourse, then accept the apology and let him learn from it. But this is about control. They're controlling the language so that they control what we think. So if they control what we say, they control the messaging. And that's what it's all about. It's not what he said. It's how he said it. It's, the message was positive. It was inclusive, diversity, but the words he used weren't appropriate for them. So that's their tool they're using to get rid of someone that they consider to be not in the approved narrative.
A lot of people will say, "Oh well, brought it on himself. He should know the deal. He's paid a lot of money." And a lot of people have said that to me this morning. Tough. But a lot of people think that, well, this isn't going to happen to them because they're not above the parapet. They haven't got a big important job. That's not what's happening, though, is it? This is actually happening to ordinary people in ordinary jobs all over the place.
It's a massive overreaction. And when we see things like this happening on a large scale, other companies and institutions copy it. So I'm getting messages from teachers who are saying, I've said the wrong thing. I used the wrong word. I'm now worried about my job. People are getting cancelled left, right, and centre for the language they're using. And it's difficult to keep up to date with what are the okay words to say.
Yeah, tell me about it. Calvin Robinson, really appreciate you joining us. Really interesting to get your perspective there. 9:20 is the time. Up next, we're going to be talking about a Public Accounts Committee report into huge sums of money handed out to help local towns. But was the handing out that money impartial, given that the Housing Secretary's constituency did rather well out of it? We'll talk more about schools cancelling GCSE and A-levels in Wales. And we're going to be talking to Brian Blessed about his campaign to wear a mask. You can watch the show live. We're streaming on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. You're listening to the Julia Hartley-Brewer Breakfast Show on Talk Radio with the Sun Digital Edition app. Get your favourite newspaper delivered straight to your device. It's the Sun and then some.